Hello, BookTube. I had a whole bunch of plans for things I wanted to do this weekend in terms of BookTube videos, and of course, BookTube itself provides tons of inspiration to do even more. But then I got hit with a blast of deadline work, and not just the usual kind, where all I have to do is write up X number of brilliant words and email them away, but rather the sticky kind where I need to be involved. And it's consumed my day. I had actually had to cancel plans, but I didn't want to not see you at all. So we have a mail haul, the last mail haul of the week. So we'll go through that. It ends in a couple of boxes. There might be something good in here. So we'll see what we have here, and then I will hope for clearer skies tomorrow. I mean, I'm sincerely hoping that. Okay, this first one. Does that have any paperwork in it, little girl? No, it does not. Okay. Okay, I don't really know what this is. This is Sueños y Pesadillas by Dalia Rossetti. Dreams and Nightmares in an English language translation. A sexual encounter with another girl transports Dalia Rossetti from her high school in Argentina to Yotemina, a space where language and desire control the fabric of reality. On her journey, Rossetti meets saints, mafiosos, monks, knights, punk rockers, club kids, and figures from her past. As Dalia's conceptions of time and self come unmoored, she confronts the possibility that she may never return to her old life, and must learn to exist in a world where her reality hinges on the narratives she produces. Okay, so I don't know anything about this. It was translated by Alexis Almeida, and the book was written originally in 2016. Any of you recognize this? Sueños y Pesadillas? I don't recognize it at all. All right, well, that's an odd start. There's no information on it for me to know, is this a new book? Is it coming out next month or the month after that? I'll have to look it up. I'll have to look it up online and see. But in the meantime, let's move on to this next one. That's a decidedly minor key to start a mail haul, and especially when we're only going to see each other this one time. Let's see for better. Oh my. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, we move on to more comprehensible areas for me, anyway. This is an August release, a book on a subject about which I know a lot, so it will be, that makes it all the more fun. It makes it, you might think that's counterintuitive, but it actually makes it more interesting to dig into a work of nonfiction, especially a work of history, if you know a lot about it. Picture, for those of you who don't read nonfiction, picture, an author where you've read 10 books. The next book you're going to be all the more eager to read it, not less, even though by then you know the author fairly well. Same thing with a subject. You just hope that an author will either be really eloquent on a subject in ways that you had not thought, or will actually teach you things about it. And this is one of those subjects. This is by Martin Whittock, and it is Mayflower Lives, Pilgrims in a New World and the Early American Experience. Lovely painted cover there. Leading up to the 400th anniversary of the voyage of the Mayflower. Oh my. Martin Whittock examines the lives of the saints, who were members of the Puritan congregations, and strangers, economic migrants, is what this pub sheet calls them. It's a decidedly 21st century way to say it, but on the original ship. Collectively, these people would become known to history as the Pilgrims. The story of the Pilgrims has taken on a life of its own as one of our founding national myths. That's the United States. Their escape from religious persecution, the dangerous transatlantic journey, their brutal first winter. Throughout the narrative, we meet characters already familiar to us through Thanksgiving folklore, Captain Jones, Miles Standish, and Squanto, as well as new ones. There is Mary Chilton, the first woman to set foot on shore, and asylum seeker William Bradford. We meet fur trapper John Howland and little Mary Moore, who was brought as an indentured servant. Then there is Stephen Hopkins, who has already survived one shipwreck and was the only Mayflower passenger with any prior American experience. Decidedly unpuritanical, he kept a tavern and was frequently chastised for allowing drinking on Sundays. Okay, so this comes out in early August. It is a retelling of the Pilgrim story. As I mentioned, I have read many, many, many books on this subject. I'm always up to read another one. Doesn't sound like this one's going to be all that incendiary or innovative, but that's okay. As long as the author does a fine job, I don't care. right, so we'll move on. What is this next one? Okay. I think we saw the advanced copy of this. This is the finished copy, due, of course, in April. This is April 16th. This is Bakita, a novel of the Saint of Sudan by Veronique Olney. It's a novel by Veronique Olney. Her latest recreates the remarkable true story of Mother Josephine Bakita, a 19th century former Sudanese slave who became a Catholic nun and dedicated her life to the poor. Known as the patron saint of Sudan, she went on to be canonized by Pope John Paul II in 2000. Olney, whose book has sold in 8 countries to date, including Germany, Italy, and Spain, was inspired by the true story of Bakiti's remarkable life. Olney is driven in her research to understand what Bakiti's story teaches us about the survival of a kind and generous spirit, even in the face of profound trauma, suffering, and erasure. Okay. So it's literally a saint's life. All right, well, I don't know anything about the subject, so it will all depend on the author's narrative ability, and also much for me will depend on the author's understanding that I don't start out a book like this on my knees. I don't care who it's about. I want to know what kind of a novel it is. and if the novel implicitly or explicitly, I've known them to do both, at any point in its length, seems to say to me, you have to give me a pass here because this is all true. Or even worse, because the subject is a saint. I'm afraid that won't work. You want to write bad nonfiction, write bad nonfiction and call it that. But who is Veronique Olney? She's an actor, a playwright, and stage director who has written several novels. And for one of them, she received the Prix Masson de la Presse in 2011. She's also written plays. And she's translated here by Adriana Hunter, who's done some translating as well. And who lives in Kent, in the beautiful country of Kent in England. Okay, so this is a fairly well-known novel, now receiving its American debut. All right, about a saint. Let's see what this next one is. Are you ready, Bean? I don't know if you probably want this one. This has adhesive on it. I don't know if you do or not. Oh, I guess you do. Don't eat any of it, though. We had a wonderful long walk today that was marred. I don't know if marred is the right word. I sighed a little because Frida gets so excited by meeting other dogs, but she requires that they stand still while she inspects them and that they not move until she tells them to. And she requires that at the top of her little lungs, yodeling in that little weird scream that she makes, and dogs don't know what to do about that. She doesn't have a hostile bone in her body towards dogs or anybody else, except mice. Mice? Oh. Mice, she has a hostile bone, and her whole body is one big hostile bone towards mice. But dogs, no. She's not defensive towards bigger ones. She's not aggressive towards smaller ones. She's perfectly friendly with them, but pushy, overly pushy, and they don't know what to do about it. I keep telling her to calm down, but I don't want to order her to, because in just a couple of years, these behaviors are going to be gone on their own, and I'm going to miss them. So, I know. Anyway, what have we got? Oh, okay. Okay, so this, I think we saw this already. This comes out in early April. It's by Walter Matley. This is the finished copy of Darkness by Design, The Hidden Power in Global Capital Markets. Capital markets have undergone a dramatic transformation in the past 2 decades. Algorithmic high-speed supercomputing has replaced traditional floor trading and human market makers, while centralized exchanges that once ensured fairness and transparency have fragmented into a dizzying array of competing exchanges and trading platforms. But the first part is the dispositive one, right? I mean, these algorithms, these trading computers do things they do transactions in the fraction of a second that would take humans a while to do, and they do it based on, I don't know, I don't understand the subject obviously very well, but I've known people who were in the trading game, either as amateurs or to try and make a significant part of their income, and all they talked about was the speed of these algorithms. I guess I'll find out. In this book exposes the unseen perils in market fragmentation and dark markets, some of which are deliberately designed to enable the transfer of wealth from the weak to the powerful. Theft of wealth from the weak to the powerful. There's not a transfer going on. I guess technically there is, but it's theft. The author traces the fall of the traditional exchange model of the NYSE, the world's leading stock market in the 20th century, showing how it has come to be supplanted by fragmented markets whose governance is frequently set up to allow unscrupulous operators to exploit conflicts of interest at the expense of an unsuspecting public. Oh my. Okay, so this is from Princeton University Press, and it comes out in early April. I will have to try and find a finance expert to review this book. Perhaps someone who's getting out of grad school and might have a little time on their hands. I'll have to find such a person. And then bully them into doing it, because what would be the point of me writing about this? It's not going to have any literary value, and the historical or nonfiction value it's going to have is going to rest entirely on information that I don't have. Okay, all right, this is a bit of a strange mail haul. I confess, of course, the Mayflower book, the Pilgrim's book, is the one that's got my eyes twinkling, and there's a part of me that kind of wishes, in a mail haul like this, that the dark markets or the weird personal nonfiction or whatever, that I was getting one of those books and 5 Pilgrim-style books, and I'm not, but that's okay. The last thing we'll deal with here is the great big box. Not great big, but it's heavier. It's much heavier than the other one. So it could be multiple books or one huge book for March of the Mammoths. Oh, it's one huge book for March of the Mammoths. Are we in the right area? We are. It's 920 pages long, so it's just short of 1,000. So I guess it fits. This is the finished copy. It's a paperback of France in the World, A New Global History, edited by Patrick Bergeron. Big, thick thing in the French colors. Comes out on April 9th, and it is a big, fast-paced collection of essays by historians, by a whole bunch, dozens of historians, on different moments, aspects, people, personalities from French history. So it's not a huge, beginning-to-end narrative. And even the essays that are in it are usually quite short, quite manageable. It's I think designed. Well, let me read you about it. It's clearly designed, I think, for you to dip in and out, for you to pick around as it pleases you. Which is it's nice that the setup is so frank about that. But it does sort of. I mean, this is going to be what? Yeah, this is a $40 paperback. It's nice. It's got the French flaps, appropriately enough, and all. But are you really? If you, I just thinking for the minute about a retail bookstore customer, which I automatically do because I worked in retail bookstores for a long time, and because I pitch my reviews, all the reviews that I write, for retail readers. Maybe I shouldn't do that? I don't know. One way or another, I do. I know that a lot of people have a sweet tooth for books, and they will scrimp from other parts of their budget in order to buy books. And sometimes those people buy new books. And if you have a deep and abiding interest in France, you're going to see this thing on a Barnes & Noble table, and you're going to want it. $40 is not a small amount of money. So I pitch my estimations towards such people, and when I think about those people, I think, well, okay, the bouncing around and picking and choosing the things that interest you in a table of contents of, this finished copy is lovely. Good Lord. It's lovely. Yeah, the table of contents just goes on and on. There are dozens and dozens of little essays in this thing. On the one hand, I appreciate the honesty of setting it up that way so that it clearly announces itself as a book that you will browse rather than read. But on the other hand, I'm thinking, how many people are going to say that $40 is a correct price for something that, by that arrangement, they can understand that they might get maybe half the contents out of? Typically speaking, when you have a book like this where you pick and choose, you don't pick everything, and you don't pick 90% of everything, but you've already paid. Well, anyway, let's see what we have here. Let's see. In light of escalating protests sweeping across France, led by a cohort lamenting its economic, cultural, and political disenfranchisement, I wanted to be sure an essential book, France in the World, offering insight into just how today's globalist France came to be, is on your radar. Publicists always want to know if a book is on my radar. Published to great acclaim and controversy in France during its presidential election of 2017, this unexpected bestseller challenged nationalist narratives with a sweeping history of France, which presented the country not as a fixed, rooted entity, but instead as a place and an idea in flux. This fresh historical reimagining offers a timely retort to a moment in which national identity around the world is at risk of being conveyed in exclusionary, propaganda-strewn terms. All right, okay. So we got some sort of college boy writing this pub sheet, some sort of Poindexter. That's pretty good prose. Huh. Propaganda-strewn terms. Okay. Alternately, this book suggests that a nation's history can only be understood by considering a chorus and mosaic of perspectives that weave religious, socioeconomic, and ethnic histories. With 150 short essays. Okay, there are 150 short pieces in here. Spanning from 34,000 BC to the present day, France in the World is a poignant reframing of history, achieved through the collaboration of 122 up-and-coming historians. There are up-and-coming historians that just they're out here hustling. They're trying to make a name for themselves. I don't know. Gil needs a sail up on the board. It will force us to revisit not only how we view French history, but how we view our own. Will it indeed? As the editor of the French language edition... there's a quote from the editor of the French language edition. Okay, so this is... the updated English language edition retains 90% of the original 146 articles, fleshes out the 12-section introductions, and includes a new preface authored by that French language editor. It includes 90% of the original 146 articles. Why doesn't it include them all? You're including 122 articles, but not 146? And what rationale governed the exclusion of the 20 that are missing? Why? Why aren't they here? Now I want to know what they are. Now I want to know if I can maybe the publicist for this can get me a French language edition. Sounds like there were plenty to be printed. Huh. Well, why though? Why remove 10% of the original? I wonder why. Was it for length? Were the 10% that removed maybe a little too topical, a little too torn from the headlines of current French history? But the pub sheet itself is drawing attention to current French history, and surely that will be a reason why a lot of people... Well, anyway. This comes out soon. I have the advanced copy of this thing, and I have dipped my toe in just as I'm supposed to. And I have... There's a wide, as you would expect. I mean, I'm not going to be telling you... You've all read a lot of books. I'm not going to be telling you anything you don't already know. When you get an anthology like this, with 122 up-and-coming historians, you're not going to have a uniformity of tone. And unfortunately, it's a little crass to say so, but you're not going to have a uniformity of talent either. They're going to be 3-page essays that are a slog. They're going to be 10-page essays that fly because they're written so well. And the translator's involved now. So do we have, what information do we have here? Okay, yeah, this came out in 2017. Okay. Wow. All right. So I'm going to read the whole of this. I'm going to read it in the way that I think it is clearly not designed to be read. I'm going to read it from front to back. I've dipped in already with my advanced copy and been intrigued. So now it's time for me to read everything so I have a sense of this thing when I come time to write about it. I find it fascinating. I find the book's meta-history more fascinating right now than the book itself. And I wish that there were a piece in here on that meta-history. That a book this size, I mean, if this thing is 900 pages long, so the original with those extra 10% essays must have been over 1,000 pages. And yet, according to that pub sheet, I'll have to check and see if it's true. Those of you who are in France, feel free to tell me. The impression I'm getting is that this flew out of bookstores, that people wanted to read it. Because of the historical moment that France is in right now, that the French were grabbing a book. And that's fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating. Whether it happens in America, for instance, with Bob Woodward's Fear, or whether it happens in France or wherever it happens. Well, anyway, that is our mail haul. A couple of history titles that intrigue me more than the others, I admit. You probably saw that coming. So we have France in the World, and then we have Darkness by Design, for which I need some sort of finance graduate student to review. Then Bakita, a novel of the Saint of Sudan. Then Mayflower Lives, a new, fairly handleable length coming out in the late summer about the Pilgrims. And Sueños y Pesadillas by Dalia Rossetti. Know nothing about this. I'm going to have to find out about it to even speak rationally about it, much less know what I'm getting into. But in English translation, so we have what, 3 English translations here? Interesting. An interesting mail, I admit. Of course, there's not really a Steve book in here, so it's a little bit of a down note on which to end a raucous week of mail. But there'll be more mail on Monday, and I will be back. I'm hoping on Sunday you will see more of me. I don't think I can justify doing another video other than this one today, because I am absolutely swamped. I am sure that in the time that I've taken just to stop and make this video, I've had 5 different emails from the same editors. It happens sometimes. I like it. I am a cheerful presence. I want these editors and all editors to know that. I want them all to remember that I don't grouse. I don't complain. I don't lag. I'm perfectly cheerful at all times of the day and night. It's just everyone's, and that usually is fun. I hear about their families. I get pictures of their dogs. It becomes not at all a typical professional relationship, and I like that. I think the world is a lot better when all of our relationships are like that. All of our relationships should be like that, more or less. The downside, the price that I pay, is that when they need something, they don't expect to hear me say, well, you know, this rather oversteps. And I'm not going to say that, so they don't have to worry about it. But anyway, that is sucking down my time, and will be, since we're talking about something on the other side of the world, that will be sucking down my time literally all night long. But tomorrow, I hope to be free, so maybe more videos then. Certainly a few, more than one. But in the meantime, I'll wrap this up, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.